Mr. Baird. How you doing?
How you doing, buddy? I'm excellent.
Ready to roll.
That's right. Jorge Alfredo, gentlemen. How y'all doing?
Hey, Brett. Good morning. Hi, Ben. Good morning as well.
What's going on? Good morning. Good morning. I want to see some
Wednesday.
cameras, though. I can't look at these just black screens with the snowmen on them.
I know we got there he is, Mr. Clothes on.
There we go. There we go.
That handsome gentleman that just popped up with that beard there. In you go. He's calling all the way from Bilbao, Spain. Excellent. You want to get it kicked off, Ben? So first and foremost, guys, 2023, right? 2023, new year, clean slate. A lot of big things going to happen this year. Looking back at 2022, it was a year full of adversity, right? It was super tough. People getting out of the business, people laying down like sick dogs, people not doing what they anticipated they would do volume-wise, number-wise, people walking out on themselves. I use Ben here as a coach, as do a lot of the big players in the athletic worlds, Alabama football, Miami. He was just on the sidelines with K-State here in the Alabama game, so on and so forth. And it's all about staying in the game. So Ben here is the personification of discipline. I've told this story a number of times, but Ben wakes up at 2:44 in the morning. It doesn't mean that we all need to wake up at 2:44 in the morning, but
do not wake up at 2:44
like
in the morning. I do not suggest that.
It's not a good thing, But I mean, talk about guilty conscience. In my former life, about halfway through last year, I was getting home in the morning when Ben was texting me. He's getting up and I'm just going to bed. So it's all about change. It's all about being better. Ben's helping me a lot with that. Never felt better in my life. Business is, it's on the upswing, and I attribute that a lot to how Ben's helped here, and wanted to bring a bunch of friends along and see what kind of insight we can get into 2023. So without further ado, Mr. Ben, take it away, buddy.
Well, Brett, I appreciate you as always, and it's great for the times we're able to be in person as we've been able to do recently, but these quarterly calls, I always look forward to them because I think there's a couple of things here. Number one, I think it's unique in the industry. Brett, I remember there was on a coaching call and he said, he says, all these individuals that I have relationships with over the years, what can I do during this period of time when there's doubt, fear, uncertainty, interest rates? What's going to be? Can you conduct business? Can you not conduct business? People are leaving the industry. How do you do this right now? And let's get together and let's all be a source of positivity for each other and belief that we can all continue to grow together through these trying times. And by choosing to stay together and grow together, we can actually establish strength that the people who are waiting on the sidelines won't have when things turn. They then go back to the game of starting over and trying to create momentum again. And these are periods of time where maybe your numbers are down from where you're accustomed to your numbers being, but your ability to generate relationships with people who will refinance or who will buy homes, those things don't have to change. You could actually spend more time doing those things now, which means when we come out of this, it could be the strongest period of time you've ever had. So that's the first thing that I think is unique, was Brett's desire to want to have a group like this where we can consistently do this. And I then want to throw a shout out to Katie, because, Brett can have ideas, but without Katie, like, nothing happens. So Katie, I appreciate you. I love you. And, the Baird team is just incredible. We've been able to do a lot of fun things here in our work together, but I appreciate the team that makes this happen, because we all know Brett couldn't do this by himself. I will say this, though, because I'm giving Brett some trouble. Brett tries to, throw this credit towards me as if I've, done any of the work. I have not, whether it's the personal growth that Brett is now seeing in his life, or the professional growth that he's seeing, some of the continued results that their team is having during this time. People are starting to look and they're saying, like, what are you doing? Like, how are you continuing to get results and make an impact? And it's mindset. And I think their team, is very attractive right now. The belief that their team has that they can still work on relationships with all of you. You all can still do business together. You all can still be a resource for each other. And there's amazing things that can be accomplished no matter what they try to tell us is going on in the world or financial markets or with interest rates. And so with that being said, I just think it's a unique environment that we can sit in. I think Brett and his team are providing a great example for all of us. And we're going to spend more time doing Q&A. I've got some fun stories to kind of take you behind the scenes on a couple of things that happened that were meaningful for me and lessons learned since our last time together. But we're going to spend a little more intentional time doing questions and answers today, because I am very aware and cognizant of the fact that I can say those things about belief. I can say those things about Brett's team, but the reality is there's also emotion that's real. There's emotion that's raw. There is fear. There is doubt. There is uncertainty. And I coach people every single day. It's not just in the sports world. A lot of people don't realize 75% of my work is in business in the corporate world, not in the sports world. And so every day I'm having those conversations. And so I wanted us to be able to, have some live interaction with question and answer that'll help us really address some of the things that are on your mind. And, one person asking one question might be the same question that 20 other individuals have. And so we can really grow through that type of a setup. But before we get there, there's a couple of things that I wanted to share that I thought would be kind of fun. Brett and I were talking the other day, and he's like, it'd be amazing to kind of hear, like, what happens in a game, like, Alabama's playing Kansas State, and like, you're on the sideline, like you're in the locker room. It's not like I'm attending the game sitting in the stands. I'm a coach for these teams. And so he said, like, it'd be amazing if I said, I already planned on doing that. And so a result of what I'm going to share with you, which is what happened in the locker room after Kansas State lost to Alabama, I think is a valuable lesson that our head coach shared for all of you. But it made me think of 3 words that I have now carried to kickoffs that I've done with all of the corporate organizations that we partner with, as well as the teams. And there's 3 words that I want to carry through and really be consistent in our work together this year for those of you that want to continue to have these calls together. And it's raise the bar. Raise the bar. Each and every single one of you can look back. Some of you may say last year was disappointing. I wish I had done more. Some of you may say I really surprised myself with what I was able to accomplish, even with all of the craziness going on in the industry. But whether you were a little bit short of where you wanted to be or you blew past your goals, every single one of you have something in common. You can raise the bar. You can do more and you can give more if you believe that you're able to do that by being consistent in your disciplines and your habits and scrutinizing the daily behaviors that either caused you to fall short or caused you to be great. And so we all can do that. And that's where we're going to spend some time today before we do the Q&A. But to kind of paint a picture in terms of the story, people always ask me, what's the best locker room speech you've ever heard? Like, you got to tell me, what's the best one? Believe it or not, the 3 best locker room talks after a football game I've ever heard all came after losses. So the 3rd best locker room speech I've ever heard was Coach Saban when I was with Alabama when they played Texas A&M last season, and we lost at Texas A&M. It was absolutely incredible what Coach Saban shared that night. The 2nd best speech I've ever heard also came after a loss. It's when we were at North Dakota State. So my first ever work in collegiate football was with North Dakota State back in 2014. And we had an opportunity to win 5 straight national championships, which we did. The following year we lost, ends the streak of 5 straight, which is probably a record that'll never be matched in the history of college football, 5 straight national championships. Although what Georgia did the other night, if they keep it up, they might win 10 straight national championships. That was pretty amazing. But it was an incredible speech that Coach Kleiman, our head coach at North Dakota State, delivered. Coach Kleiman brought me with him to Kansas State because we won 3 national titles at North Dakota State, 1 AA. So he brings me with him to Kansas State. And the best locker room speech I've ever heard was after we lost. After Kansas State lost to Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. Now, that might surprise some of you. Okay, his 3 best speeches I've ever heard, all losses, not the wins. It's easy to give a great speech after a win, but the question becomes, how do you show up when things don't go your way? And for probably more of us than the majority, we fell short last year. and you fell short of where you wanted to be for a myriad of circumstances. Some of it could have been personal, some of it could have been market, some of it could have been changed, trying to adapt. It hasn't caught up yet. Whatever it is, I'm finding more people in your industry fell short. But you all, just like an opportunity to raise the bar regardless of your results, you all have an opportunity to choose how to show up after things don't go your way. We did not get the result we wanted in the Sugar Bowl against Alabama. We believed we could beat Alabama. We believed we could compete. We were Big 12 champions. The result, 45-20. Not nearly as bad as what Georgia did to TCU, but not the result that we wanted. And Coach Kleiman walks into that locker room. It was amazing. And he says, where's everybody that's been here for 4 years? This is our 4th season, our staff here with this incredible group of men. You heard me right, incredible group of men. Where are the individuals, the players who were here 4 years ago when we first got here? You all come to the front of the group. The rest of you come behind. He goes, no knock against anybody else, but I want that core group of individuals that was here when we started. He pulls them up and he says, think about what they said we would accomplish when we first got here. They said we couldn't win. They said we couldn't recruit. They said you guys didn't have talent. He said, look at what all of you accomplished. What all of you did was you believed in a culture that we as coaches wanted to create, and you bought in and you went to work one day at a time. And as a result of doing that, this group of men that I'm looking at became Big 12 champions. And you have a choice. You can define yourself by what that scoreboard says today, or you can recognize in life that you're never defined by a moment. You're always defined by your entire body of work. And when I think of this group, I don't think of that score on that scoreboard tonight. I think of what you all have done over the last 4 years. So all of you could look at what that scoreboard said at the end of 2022, and you can allow that to define you and carry over and allow those feelings of doubt, fear, and uncertainty to determine how you show up every day and have less discipline than you and I both know it takes to compete and to sustain and to grow a business regardless of interest rates in this environment. So how are you showing up? See, because Coach Kleiman, what he was really imparting was, it's your choice. You see, because this team, that one game isn't going to prevent us from continuing to build on the foundation that we now do have a championship culture. But you all have to continue to choose to show up that way. You cannot allow this to define you, and I won't let this define you. And you have to ask yourself, and for those of you that are new to these calls that we do, I never call anybody out. I never say, raise your hands. Who's thinking this way? Who hasn't been showing up? It's January the 11th. Who's already quit on their New Year's resolutions? I don't do that. I'm not here to call anybody out. But I do ask you to have a conversation with yourself. If I get you thinking, if I say raise the bar and you feel 11 days in, you haven't raised the bar yet, let's not continue stacking days of not raising the bar. Let's change the behavior now. For those of you that have decided, I am going to choose to show up. I am going to focus on being my best. I'm going to focus on relationship building. I'm going to be one of the individuals who stays in the fight and continues to conduct business, because people will refinance homes. People will buy homes. Realtors are going to be busy. The mortgage industry is going to be busy. It may not be as busy for some, but it will be busy for me. And you can show up with that mindset. And that's a mindset that says, I don't care what interest rates are. I don't care what that scoreboard is, because that scoreboard does not define me. I define myself by how I choose to show up every single day. And Coach Kleiman is one of the greatest leaders I've ever had the blessing of being around. It's, you know, in my work, Brett may tell you this is different, but there's things Brett says, or there's things that Brett does. The decision to want to do this, I learned from Brett. Brett, what an amazing idea. You want to do this during these times? So we're constantly having an opportunity to learn from each other. I still have 2 coaches. I still read books every day. I'm far from having this figured out. So I love when I get to be in a locker room, not to just be able to tell you a story, but because there's lessons learned. Just like the year you just went through, there's lessons learned. And there's lessons that you get to choose how you respond to that challenge and adversity. And so I believe that you all can do extraordinary things right now, regardless of the environment. How do I know? Because I'm seeing Brett Baird's team do it. And he's partnering with so many of you on this call to make the impact, to get results. And you all know who you are. So the reality is, you either partner with the individuals who believe you can attack and make an impact and make a difference, or you decide to sit on the sidelines and wait. I've never been a sit on the sidelines and wait kind of guy. And I'm not going to tell you got to wake up as early as I do in the morning. I will never make that recommendation, but I will recommend that whatever your environment looks like, whatever time you say you're going to get up at that time. Whatever you say you're going to do in terms of your nutrition, do it. Whatever you say is important to you with your families and your loved ones and your significant others, I'm going to be present and focused. Then be present and focused, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. And if you let yourself off the hook because times are tough in terms of your focus with your family, your nutrition, your workouts, I promise you it's going to show up in other areas. And when it comes to coaching, I'm direct because I care that much. You see these veins pop out of my neck. Just know, many of you have heard me say, it's just passion because I care that much. I'm not yelling at anybody. It's just passion. But I've had the blessing of working with some of the highest performers to ever walk the face of the earth. And one of the things I always learn every time I have the opportunity to work with them is they don't quit when it gets tough. They double down. They do what they say they're going to do, and they attack. And I think that's your opportunity together and as one in your businesses to continue to attack one day at a time, to do the things you say you're going to do personally, to do the things you say you're going to do professionally. There's no doubt in my mind, you could look at Brett Baird. Brett Baird looks like a different person. I had the opportunity to have dinner with Eunice and Brett and some others in Denver. We had an incredible dinner in December for an event. And I could just see just amazing energy between Eunice and Brett. Like, they're both doing what they say they're going to do personally. But guess what? That shows up in other areas of your life. And it made me happy seeing that energy. And so Brett is an example for all of us that when you do what you say you're going to do personally, what ends up happening, you end up doing a little bit more professionally. That's just the way that it works. I will not be one of those individuals that says balance does not exist. I believe that you can accomplish things personally, you can accomplish things professionally, and you can do a little bit to serve the world, to spread some love that's needed in this world more than ever, every single day. And so I'm here to help. I appreciate the opportunity to be a resource, to be a coach with all of you. I always look forward to these calls. Before we start the Q&A, I do want to just share something from a book. I have written 7 books, but I always do a much better job of selling other people's books than I do my own. So I'm going to sell some books for David Goggins today. This is a book that I read at the end of last year. It's called Never Finished. Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins is my favorite book of all time. The book actually sits, it's a reminder, right when I walk in my office, I see my family, and then here's the first book, Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. Favorite book of all time. Never Finished is not too far behind. But there was something that I found fascinating in this book. And I wanted to share this with all of you before we start the Q&A, because I realize with what I've just shared that some of you, all of you are feeling some emotion right now. There's belief, I can do more, maybe he's right, maybe I've been living to my feelings, I haven't been focused on the standard, I haven't been as consistent, my baby, I'm ready to do it. That's motivation. Motivation is fleeting. Okay, so I'm not a motivational speaker. A lot of people say, oh, he's a motivational speaker. I'm a coach. So I want to make sure that there's long-term growth and sustainability, that if you feel that, you engage and you write down, here's what I need to do personally every day, and I'm going to do it. Here's what I need to do professionally every day, and I'm going to do it. Here's what I need to do in terms of being service to others, and I'm going to do it. We call that a prize fighter day. I believe we've sent videos out to the group. I'll send it to Katie and the team to distribute again to everybody that attended. But it's how you build the ability to win one day at a time. And I believe, even though I've been able to win championships in boardrooms and on fields all across the world, I believe winning is not in rings, it's not in dollars. Winning is your ability to look yourself in the mirror one day at a time and say, today I gave it my very best. If you have the ability to do that, nobody can ever take that away from you, and you can never ask any more of yourself than your very best. And if you design a standard that you live to, where you attack and win one day at a time as an individual, and you empower and inspire the people on your team to do the same, the byproduct is winning at very high levels. And even though I know that to be true, I also know that we all have fears. No matter how much success you've had, you're going to have fear. Some of us little fears, some of us big fears. It's okay to have fear. I encourage you to be vulnerable. I encourage you to be honest. I have fears. I have doubts. I have uncertainties. And so does David Goggins. And so I wanted to share something with you, which I don't think many people would think would be true. David Goggins, arguably the most mentally tough human being to ever walk the face of the earth, right? So when you hear that, 4,700 pull-ups in a 24-hour period of time, running 100-mile ultra marathons with no training. I mean, the stuff that he's done, a Navy SEAL having gone through BUDS training 3 times. You would hear that and you'd say, he must have iron skin. Nothing could break him. No fears, no doubts. It's the reverse. And I think to be vulnerable and transparent and honest with each other is where we have our greatest opportunity to grow together. And so I wanted to share this with you. These are his thoughts on fear. And I want you all to know we can get excited. Here's the standard. We're going to design our days. It doesn't mean we'll remove fear, but I encourage you to limit the amount of time you spend talking to your fear and replace it with the action that'll cause you to win. But here's what he has to say about fear. I'm afraid a lot, but I've learned to flip fear by facing whatever it is that I'm scared of head on. When I first started to face my fears, I was tentative. That's normal. And the emotions and discomfort I felt were proof of how potent this process can be. My anxiety stirred and my adrenaline pumped as my mind edged closer to what I was so desperate to avoid. But within all that energy is a mental and emotional growth factor that can lead to self-empowerment. Just as stem cells produce a growth factor that stimulates cellular communication, muscle growth, wound healing in the body, fear is a seed pod packed with growth factor for the mind. When you deliberately and consistently confront your fear of heights or particular people, places, situations that unsettle you, those seeds germinate and your confidence grows exponentially. You might still hate jumping off of high things or swimming beyond the waves, but your willingness to keep doing it will help you make peace with it. You may even be inspired to try to master it. That's how a kid who is afraid of the water his whole life became a Navy SEAL. I think for every single one of you in this industry right now, we'd be lying to ourselves if there wasn't some fear. Silence the fear, silence your doubts. Let's admit that we all have it right now. And let's identify what it takes for you to win and just keep stacking those days, knowing and believing that your best is yet to come. And every single one of you, regardless of what that scoreboard said, you can raise the bar in 2023. We're in this fight together. We're going to do this together. And I look forward to the opportunity to do this together. Brett, I'll turn it over to you to kick off the Q&A. And then I do have some stories and a couple of stories and thoughts to finish up. So maybe we'll go Q&A for about 25 minutes and then about 5 or 10 for me to finish.
Cool. And this group, there's a little bit of everyone on here. I'm looking at one set of realtors out in the great state of Tennessee that are brand new to the business. And right next to them is one of my friends that owns probably a top 30 national mortgage company. You know, they did about $10 billion in volume last year. So there's no bad questions on here. There's, like I said, there's some of everyone. And this whole thing, it's not about motivation. You know, that walks out the door in 5 minutes. This is about taking one step in the positive, in the right direction every day for a lot of days in a row. And pretty soon you're going to open your eyes and you're going to be 10 miles down the road and you're going to look in the mirror and you're not going to recognize yourself, right? It's about the habits. It's about, you know, I told this story to my team recently. I bought my dream car, right? I had a picture of a Lamborghini on my wall when I was a kid. When I ordered this car, my Lamborghini came in, I bought the car of my dreams, yada, yada, yada. I finally executed on one of my lifelong goals. And I kept the car for about 6 months. And I'm telling my team, I'm sitting there and I'm like, guys, business is going to get a little bit tight. We got to save our money. Let's each pick 5 things that we're going to cut, whether it be Comcast or coffee or Uber Eats or one of a million different things, right? And then I'm sitting there driving a Lamborghini around. And you kind of look at yourself and you're like, what the hell are you doing here? So I sold the car as an example, right? Like right now is the best time to be in the people business and the leadership business. There's a zillion leaders on this call, and you can't ask other people to do stuff that you're not doing. I can't weigh 300 pounds and tell people go to the gym. I can't get up at 6 and tell people to get up at 4:30, right? This is standard over feelings. It's one day at a time. It's discipline. It was never about the damn car, right? And to bring it back to that point, it was never about the Lamborghini. It's like, what the hell did you do to get? What were the daily disciplines you did for 10 or 15 or 30 years or whatever, since I was dreaming of that car to get there? And that's what we have to get back to. It's the grassroots, making the calls, being in front of people. Christian Lemire, my good friend that I mentioned in Nashville, Tennessee. Christian, it's your 45th day in the business here? How many deals do you have?
So between Christian Jennings and I, we're at 10 right now, one already closed and another one that just went under contract last night.
And Christian Jennings, it's the CNC Music Factory over there, Christian and Christian. 10 deals. And Christian, you've been in the business for what, 7 minutes now? Like when did you get your license moved over and get out of new sales and go into new home sales to resale?
So this is my 9th day with Keller Williams.
Okay.
And I've got 3 listings myself.
Excellent. So people are still buying and selling houses is what you're telling me.
100%.
Good.
People got to move.
Excellent. So no, that's just, it's a little story about myself and like personal experience. It's funny now, like me being in the gym and posting stuff like that, different things these days. I'm getting more business from guys wanting to work out with me than I ever did from the bar. It's I had 3 managing brokers hit me up last week, like, hey, you did 2,000 reps today. Will you take me in and work me over in the gym? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And it's free. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of opportunity out there. There's a lot of upside out there. We just have to be disciplined. It's a day by day thing. And Ben helps us with that. So I want to get some Q&A fired up here. We can actually start with the Christians.
Yeah, I think really the one question I have is like, we get anxiety from not taking action, right? And so like, for example, on Monday, I spent 5 hours hammering the phones and didn't book a single appointment. But I felt great because I took action. And I guess the question that I have is, how do we, you said, limit the fears and limit the silence, but that stuff's going to creep in when we don't take action. Do you have any advice around reality and not getting caught up in the false fears, I guess, of, the day-to-day grind of what we're doing?
Oh, you really already mentioned it. So let me ask a question, and then I'll let me ask you a question, but then I will answer your question. So in order to generate the 10 opportunities that you have, the 2 closings that you have, how did that happen?
Action.
What action?
Picking up the phone, calling people, following up with existing leads, and being consistent. So
I call those. So I've been doing sales training. I've been doing this for 16 years. You can hop on Instagram and see people that are, coaches and speakers and authors, and, they thought it was a neat title and put it on their, Instagram account last week. I've been doing this a long time, 16 years. And when I teach sales training, I always say, okay, if you have a big goal, we have to put the big goal up in the sky, right? We paint it on the proverbial mental shelf, or we put it up on our whiteboard, or we print it out on paper. And then we got to pull it down. We got to reverse engineer it and say, what are the daily behaviors that are going to cause that to happen? And for those in sales, so like when you say it's a phone call, or it might be an email, it might be a text message, I call them POCs, a point of contact. So every single one of you, if you're generating loans, you're generating opportunity, you're generating listings, you're generating new clients, there's a number that okay, I have to do this many times. It's 20 POCs a day, generates the results, and I can look in the mirror and know that I've given it my best. So you just told us the reason why you have 10 is because there's some number of POCs that you've been doing that caused the 10. So when the fears, the doubts, and the uncertainties come into play, which is going to happen for all of us, what's the logical thing for us to do? the POCs, because the POCs in the work is what silences the self-talk. It's what silences the doubts. Far too often, the reason why fear becomes louder and louder and louder is because I'm scared I won't get a deal. I'm scared somebody's not going to pick up the phone. Nobody's picked up the phone today. Because nobody picked up the phone today, I probably won't have a deal in February. Maybe I won't have a deal. Now we start saying on January the 11th, how many deals am I going to have for the year? I don't have any idea. I promise you I'd get paid a hell of a lot more money than I get paid if I could tell you exactly how many deals you're going to have on December the 31st, 2023. But what I do know is you have 10 deals because you've been taking action. So we all have to identify how many POCs per day do I have to make, knowing that when I do that, it's not about getting a listing every day. It's not about on that phone call, I get a closing. It's knowing that that action step compounded day after day after day, stacking days, is what silences the fears and creates closings. It's what creates listings. And so if it's meaningful enough to you, you have to reverse engineer what is my number per day, and don't get caught up in the results. Get lost in your passion for the process of the work and those POCs and the controllables. And sales is a numbers game. You stack the days of doing the work. You are not going to go 0 for 1,000 for the year or 0 for 1,200 for the year. Sorry to break it to you. You're not that bad. You're actually pretty damn good, each and every single one of you. And so you have to do the things that you say you're going to do. That's how I've helped individuals silence fear, and that's how you'll win during all times. I don't know what the results are going to be, but I promise you you'll win because it's a numbers game. And the people who are sitting on the sidelines not doing the work, these are the times when high performers or people who believe that you can conduct business separate themselves from the individuals sitting there doing nothing.
Excellent.
Can
Classic
I ask
Christian
a
story.
question? I would love to ask a question of David Silverman. I know him running an organization, so I could end up, having him tell me I'm full of shit and this is not the way that business is done with a guy that has the level of success that he has. But David, hearing this, okay, so I'm putting myself out there, right? No fears, no doubts. Is what I'm saying true running an organization the size of your organization? Have you found that more people in your organization, the high performers, they wake up and say, dear God, let business drop from the sky? Or are they consistent in their disciplines and habits?
Well, first, let me just say it's an honor to be on this and to listen to you. I've already taken away some major nuggets, so thank you for the invite, Brett. You did say you weren't going to call anybody out, so you're guilty. That's okay. I'm always prepared anyway. I'm always prepared anyway. So as you were talking, I was actually thinking about some of my favorite books, and that was one of them. And another one that the trainer that trained Michael Jordan and Dwayne Wade and Kobe Bryant and
Tim Grover.
When you say Tim Grover, right? When you say, what do the high performance do differently? It's the same thing that goes in my mind as an owner. Like, what are the mistakes that we all made here? Is that we didn't act. I'll say I'm not going to say we. I didn't act as a high performer every day when things were going well. The difference between those guys, which should be the same for a business owner or the same for a realtor or the same for an originator or a branch manager, anybody, is that it doesn't matter how great you're doing. You always need to be doing all those things every day because somebody's chasing you and you got to get better. And you can't get better if you're standing still or resting your laurels or happy that you made, this amount of money that came in or that everything seems to be running fine. Guess what? Not everything was running fine. And we found it all out. It wasn't just the rates going down and prices going up that caused this problem. If you look inside any branch, you look inside any organization, they all suffer from the same disease, which is we weren't watching the P&L close enough. All those things that can be done as an organization can be done for an individual. And so it all just comes back to exactly what you're talking about today, Ben and Brett, which is really just committing to what you're going to do every day. And eventually the skies will clear and somebody's going to survive. I've been in 25 years NFM's been around. I've been through several of these cycles. This is by far the worst. But I do know that even when it looks the darkest, somehow or another, if you just keep going one day at a time and doing the work, you will get to the other side and there'll be less competition. There'll be more opportunity. It sucks right now. So to answer your question in a long way, yeah, it absolutely relates. Absolutely relates. The high performers, they do these things whether things are going great or they're not. They make these contracts with themselves and they don't break those contracts. And those contracts are doing all the little things every day that make the great results so they stay ahead of everybody else.
Thank you, David. I appreciate you allowing me to break the rules that one time, and it's perfect perspective. And we could go. I could ask the same question of everybody, and we all know what we need to do. The question becomes, are you willing to actually do it, Brett?
So one of my previous coaches and one of my favorite guys on the planet is also on this call. His name's Hunter Marcourt. Hunter, you got a question?
Yeah, I think my question is, and Ben, this is fantastic. I've got a stack of notes here.
Oh, thank you.
How do you take other people, like I think about it like with faith, right? You got people that are just pounding you over the head with their faith. And for me, it's a total turnoff as opposed to quietly watching someone in their faith. How do we do that with all of the, so many people that we work with, quite frankly, are not as motivated as we are. And it's like, you can go down two paths, find the people that are, which is absolutely something we need to do, but also try to take people up the hill with us that normally wouldn't go. And to me, that's where we become more valuable. How do we do that? How do you take someone that isn't as motivated as we are and take them up the hill?
I'll share one of my favorite stories of what I believe it takes. I love that question, Hunter, and fabulous question. It's been no surprise that question comes from a coach, and I know because Brett has shared you being a core coach, you have to perform at a high level to have the opportunity to do that. So without us having a relationship and getting to know each other, I respect what you've done to have that opportunity to do that. It's very, very significant. What I'd share is the importance of what I call the burn. The burn. So our podcast is actually called The Burn. We're on our 5th season. I don't know, we probably have 200 episodes. And every week we share a story. We interview somebody who talks about their burn. And I think a lot of coaches, they miss what I believe is the most important piece, which is going to answer your question. It's the burn that lies inside of you. And it's your burn that actually ignites why and purpose that then causes you to be disciplined in your action, especially on the days that you don't want to do it. So I lost my mother, as an example, 11 days before my 8th birthday. Parents divorced at 6 months old. I had to grow up fast. Every day, I'm going to own every day. My mother died at 38 years old. I'm 44. I've been given 6 extra years. My mother never got, one day at a time. You better damn well believe I'm going to own every single day and fight to be my best, because I got 6 years my mother didn't get. And I am fighting to continue to write my mother's story. Now, my mother's story is probably not going to get David Silverman out of bed, but I know that whether it's David or Hunter or Sasha or Jorge or Alfredo, every single one of you, there's a burn inside of you. And there's a lot of coaches who talk about why and purpose, but they don't spend enough time understanding that burn. That burn might be challenge and adversity like I've experienced that's given me perspective to where if I was in your industry, are you kidding me? Interest rates are up. I watched my mother come to the dinner table with an IV stand and she was dying before my eyes when I was 7 years old. I'll deal with the interest rates. I'll be okay. I'll find people who want to buy a house or refinance. I'm not worried about it, but that's my perspective. Some people, it's what you've sacrificed for. Right? I'm sacrificing for this. Because I'm sacrificing for this, I don't care what happens to interest rates. I will do the work. Or maybe there's somebody who's sacrificed for you. And you say, I will not waste the sacrifice that was made for me just because the industry's tough right now. What my family had to do, bringing me to the United States, first generation, which one of my dear friends, he's a financial advisor for me and for Brett Baird. He's an extraordinary human being. His parents left great jobs in Brazil to come to the United States to have jobs that could hardly pay the bills so that their kids could have a better future. Every day he wakes up and he says, I'm just going to stack bricks. If my parents left Brazil and made that sacrifice, you better believe I'm going to own every day. That's the burn. And I believe when you understand the burn or you start there, That's what causes people to say on my toughest days, I'm riding with Hunter. You know why? Because Hunter's not just pounding on me to close deals or to close a loan or to have a big pipeline. Hunter's coming to me because he knows what's wired in my heart, and that's what's going to cause me to want to be on a team with Hunter. So I think we have to get to know our people during all times, ups, downs, all the time, but especially when times are tough. And when you understand somebody's burn and you recognize, if I understand their burn, I'm open and transparent, they understand mine. It's a collective fire that when you put that fire together, I don't care what interest rates are. Let's go step inside that fire and let's see where we land. And I promise you, staying connected and believing and doing the work, you'll be far better off when those rates go down because you have a team that's been building relationships all along the way. You have a team that's been conducting business and closing business the whole way. And when those rates go down, that is an inferno that other people take a look at it and they feel it and they say, how in the world did they do that? It's because we never stopped. Because you, Hunter, cared enough that on the toughest days to have the tough conversations and say, I know it's tough, but are you still connecting to that burn, that sacrifice, that perspective that you can fight through anything? So that's what I believe helps. It's you got to understand people's burn.
I love that. Literally every single business partner, I need to understand their burn.
Every single one. So I'll tell you one of my favorite stories. I was a financial advisor. That's how all my work started in speaking and coaching. So I don't say this to impress anybody. It's to impress upon the point. Started as a financial advisor in 2004, got off to a fast start, set sales records for a Fortune 500, Fortune 100 financial firm. I got invited to speak, so things were taking off. And so then I was still an advisor at the time, and I go into our managing partner's office and I scheduled a meeting with him. To this day, I can't even remember why I scheduled the meeting, but I remember walking into his office. He had this beautiful office. I remember sitting down in the chair. We had an hour-long meeting that was scheduled, and John looks at me and he's got his glasses on the bridge of his nose. Ben, what are we here to discuss today? And I was like, I'm ready to go, right? I'm upset. You've all had, if you're leaders, you had somebody come into your office and they schedule this meeting. They're just going to complain about everything. And I was lit up. I was energized. I was like angry. And I started for about like 3 minutes. I said, I can't even remember what it was. And I'm going off. I'm so angry. I'm so upset. And John looks at me. Hunter, he knew my burn. He says, hey, Ben, I got a question for you. Actually, it was like this, right? Ben, I got a question for you. He says, what would your mom want you to do right now?
Wow.
And I looked at him and I said, John, this meeting is over. I'm going to go dial the phone. I appreciate your time. So the meeting lasted 3 minutes. I got 57 minutes back to get back on track. And he got 57 minutes of his life back, not listening to my shit. But in order to get there, he had to understand my burn. And for so many, how many conversations have you had? You're coaching somebody and it's like, okay, why are we talking about this? Like the moment he goes there, I'm like, to the point, I can't remember. I remember my mom coming to the dinner table at IV stand. I don't know what the hell I was complaining about that day. And so I think the burn is so important that you understand that with your people.
Love it. Thank you.
You're welcome. I think we've got time for maybe one more question.
Yeah,
Or maybe one or two more questions.
One or two more. And Hunter, what we do here, and I was not disciplined with this last year. So Katie, my lovely caretaker, is responsible to make sure even on the months that I don't want to do is that we do it. And then she compiles them like this. This is everyone's goals for the month on the team. So I sit down with them. It's 5 personal, it's 5 professional. I do them with some of the agents. If one of any of the other agents on here want to do them with me, I'll help hold them accountable. And they're not just goals like I want to buy this or I want to buy that. It's discipline stuff. I want to be in the gym twice a week. You know what I mean? And really figure out what makes them tick. And then, the way that they show up at the office, or if I see them off track, it's really easy to take them and guide them back. Well, hey, listen, man, if you're not here 4 days a week, are you going to be able to check this off the box, right? Because you do it 2 months in a row and they don't hit the goal 2 months in a row, then it's not a goal. It's theory, it's air. You take it off the list, right? So it's just one way that we do it that, holds people accountable. And I'll be happy to share these with you. It helps. You know what I mean? It's 1 day a month. It's the first Tuesday of every month, and it crushes my whole day. It's back to back to back to back to back for like 10 hours. But shit, it happens, right? But that way on Monday morning, when, I don't see someone in the office or, they're not doing what they should be doing to check off the box, it's really easy for me just to run a temperature check and check in with them and say, hey, listen, if we're not doing this, will it get us to, Y result? So it helps. I stole that from these boys over there at LGI. That's how they run the whole company. Like the CEO has 3 direct reports, and those guys have 6, and it goes all the way down to the office managers. It's monthly goals. So that being said, let's head on over to Miss Belen Alcaraz, down 15 pounds in the last month, lean, mean fighting machine, disciplined, getting up early, walking her dog. Unmute, Belen. No. All right, maybe we'll come back. All right, Sasha.
Me, yeah. Wasn't prepared.
Perfect. They're the best ones.
Yeah. Just as a question in general.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. I had a few and now they just went out. I would say, I don't want to say it's something I've struggled with. Advocating for myself when those in my circle don't see the drive, and leading by example while not forcing what works for me onto someone else, and how that plays into, again, more of the motivation and seeing someone's potential. I don't know if that makes sense, but the thought is there.
Yeah, so I think what you're really expressing is, there's times where it's easier to join the camp of somebody saying, why are you working so hard when times are like this? Like, don't you understand it's hard and like you can't conduct business right now? And here you are believing that you can make it happen and you're working hard. Am I catching you correctly?
Yeah, and for me, my alarm clock is set at 4:44 in the morning, and people are like, it's okay to take a break. You don't have to do it every day. Versus, no, that's what fills my cup. And standing true to continuing with what works for me, rather than like misery loves company, right? So still staying true versus comforting someone else where they're at.
So it's funny. I'm doing 75 hard, which I've previously done a bunch of phases of it. And the creator of the program's a dear friend of mine. And I love pushing myself to do it on day 45 today. And, whenever I'm doing 75 hard, I always give a little bit extra when it comes to cardio and things. So I've been doing these runs where I run from my house to the track and then I run the stairs. And I always listen to David Goggins. I love it. And Goggins, I'm going to let him answer the question, not me. So I was doing one of these crazy runs and I'm running up and down the stairs and he just kind of goes into this like free for all of thought. And he's like, you ever like stay with family during the holidays and, the family knows that you're like this extreme person who does all this stuff, and you wake up in the morning and everybody's slamming bacon and eating terrible and slamming pancakes with extra butter. And they look at you like, Goggins, what are you about to go run 100 miles? And he says, everybody wants to tease me so that they can feel better about themselves. So I can sit down and have bacon, skip my run and eat their pancakes. And the reality is I just worry about being the best me. And I walk my ass outside and I go run my run. And it may not be 100 miles because they want to tease me that that's all I do is run 100 miles. But if it's 20, I'm going to run my best 20. And I'm not saying this to be disrespectful, to anybody who, is in that misery camp. But if you really look in the mirror, you don't like being there. And so I think the benefit is surround yourself with those people who fuel you. Surround yourself with those people that believe in you. If Brett Baird for you is that only individual, then spend more time with Brett Baird. When he does these, hey, come to the workout and I'll crush you for a workout, go get crushed for a workout, right? He and I have worked out together. It's fun because he and I will push each other to do crazy things. But at the end of the day, I'd rather the two of us be crazy together than be sitting in a camp eating pancakes when I know that's not good for my mind. And so I'm a very direct coach. I'm not for everybody. And that's the reality. Tim Grover that David mentioned earlier. Tim Grover's a great friend of mine. And, he and I have shared the stage together. And I realize I'm not for everybody. I am a big teddy bear. I'm a big lover. But I'm going to say it the way that it is. I'll never call anybody out. I'll never say, hey, how are you showing up? Hey, did you eat pancakes for breakfast? But if you're eating or not doing the things that you know you need to do, at some point in time, you have to look in the mirror and say, my success and the impact I can create and how I can lead by being an example for others is so important. I'm not going to do this anymore. Doesn't mean you never eat pancakes again. I happen to love some good old hot pancakes with extra syrup, but I don't eat them during 75 hard because 75 hard is no cheat meals. And for me, I think pancakes is a cheat meal. And so I think at some point in time, you got to own it, but you got to surround yourself with those people who believe in you. Doesn't mean you don't like your family. David Goggins goes on to say, I love my family. I'm just not going to listen to them. I'm going to go out and run my 20 miles or 30 miles or 10 miles or whatever it is and be my best. So I think you got to silence it and still do the things that make you happy so that you can be successful.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. I have to say, I've done 75 hard, and I think everyone should do it. It was an old manager of mine that was like, hey, have you heard of this? And I was like, yeah. She's like, oh, I'm going to start it on Monday. Didn't look into it. And I said, I'm going to do it with you. She failed and I continued. And that's what kept my routine to what it is today, is because it really instilled, the discipline, and it's the drive to want to do it now, right? It really fuels me. And that, I agree. So I love it.
Well, I thank you, Sasha, for your question. Before we go to Belen, Belen, I see you. I know you figured out she's going to be so mad if we say there's no time after she figured out how to finally unmute her phone. So I got you, but just hold on 1 second. I've had many individuals, and I don't like mentioning these things, from this virtual stage, but there's some of you went out and found it and researched it. We have what's called Uncommon Live. It's a group coaching program where I do this every single month for an hour. Then I actually have a live office hours where people ask questions for an hour. One of my coaching partners in our coaching business, we actually have 16 coaches that are part of our coaching business. One of our other coaches runs an hour. David Meltzer, one of the top sales and marketing minds, does 30 minutes to an hour every single month. There's 30 hours of video content, a full library. Our entire Mental Toughness Academy, which is all the principles that I coach with, 2.5 hours that you could take, steal, and use to lead people on your team. Some of you are already in that group, but because some of you have found it and some of you have DM messages, if anybody's open to it, this is all I'm going to say about it. If anybody would want to be part of that group or learn more, my Instagram is @continuedfight. So just send me a DM with the word uncommon, and I will definitely discount that tuition as a result of you being a partner of Brett's. Or you can email me, bnewman@bennewman.net, bnewman@bennewman.net, if some of you aren't on IG frequently, and just email me the word uncommon, and I can reach out with some of those details. But enough people have asked, and some of you have already joined, so I wanted to make sure I at least put that out there. Belen?
And
Go ahead,
real
Barry.
quick, right before we get to Belen, Sasha, I loved the question, and I've dealt with some of that stuff recently, personally. I got another coach on this call, one of my favorite guys on the planet as well, Jordan Lawrence. I don't know if you see him up on your screen. Jordan runs against Goggins. Jordan runs 240-mile ultra hyper marathons. He's one of the toughest dudes on the planet, probably one of the 100 toughest guys. And I had, something happened to me recently with a good friend of mine. I got shined a few days at the gym, yada, yada, yada. And I talked to Jordan about it. And Jordan's like, all right, man, you got 10 seats at the table. Like, who's getting dinner? You know what I mean? Is it going to be someone? Like, we're going to do really hard shit this year. It ain't going to be easy. Right. So when we look at that, like we don't have to cut people out of our lives or say goodbye because we're, running marathons or doing 75 or yada, yada, yada. But you got to think, like, at my table, Ben's there, Hunter would be there, Raul, all these guys that surround Jordan. You surround yourself with these people and you're like, if this is your last meal, who the hell's getting the seat? You really got to look at that and be like, does this person, are they holding me back or are they pushing me along? And just not even to limit the relationships, but limit what you take in from those people. Because people try and do hard stuff, just like we're doing right now. You did the 75 hard. That's really damn hard, right? People attempt to do that stuff and then they don't execute. And then they turn on you, and they don't turn on you in a malicious way, but they're like, nah, it's hype. Ben's hype. Brett's full of shit, whatever it looks like, right? Like, you just have to be able to persevere and one foot in front of the other the next day and the next day and the next day. And then, like I said, pretty soon you'll be 10 miles down the road and new you, right? But you can't, let it eat at you in any sense of the world. Cause I've been guilty of that. And, that's why I surround myself with really strong people. right? So without further ado, Belen Alcaraz.
She's gone again.
Now she's gone. Oy vey. Raul Hernandez.
Hey guys, Brett, thank you very much for putting this on, man. And Ben, every time I listen to you, we went to your event when you were here in Denver, through the Burn podcast. Anytime, it's so much value. So thank you very much. One thing this year, actually, our entire team, we've been holding each other accountable on a different level. Obviously, we have the work every day, the calls, everything, but we started doing morning check-ins with everybody. So we started doing 5:45 a.m. morning check-ins, and we started doing 7 a.m. workout check-ins every day. And perfect example, today, I did not feel like working out at all. Got on the call, or got on the group, sent a message, and we got our asses in there. But one thing for us, I think, we're starting this accountability thing as far as the team goes, right? I mean, Brett's always kept me accountable. When he texts me, he's like, "Did you work out today?" It's like, "Oh shit, no, dude, I didn't. I'll get to work out." For us, I mean, again, we have a very young group. I think the youngest guy is Alex. He's 20. I'm the oldest, 32. So we're all in kind of different phases. With accountability, I guess, to kind of pick it up, we're getting started. We have the morning workout. We have the wake up. To what point do we hold each other accountable? Like, is there some sort of a reward, or is there some sort of anything like that kind of helps people stay on track, keep accountable? It's really easy for one of us to kind of just check in and say, "Hey, good morning," go back to bed, right? But I mean, what's the accountability? Like, how do we keep each other accountable on a different level? We've just started this again, but at what point do we push? What point, if somebody's really kind of veering off, how do we get them back on track?
I appreciate the question. With the limited information that I have about the entire group, tough to answer the question, but let me kind of answer it if I was answering it for everybody, right? If you were thinking about it, everybody's got individual teams. Every team's going to be different. So I think you really have to have conversations around what motivates the team. I'm a big believer that if you identify everybody's burn, you shouldn't have to say, "Hey, here's some competition where you can win $500 if you do this 30 days in a row." Like, if it's meaningful enough to you for the right reasons, like me writing my mother's story, you don't need to give me $500 for doing it 30 days in a row. I'm just going to do it 30 days in a row. And so I think you have to figure out as a group, like, what motivates us? How do we want to hold each other accountable? I think a lot of times leaders will say, "Here's what we're doing," and it might be completely against the values of the thought process of the people who are part of the team. And so I think you have to converse and figure out, how are we motivated? What drives us? It might be, "Hey, we're all doing this for 30 days, and then we get to go do something together." It's an activity. It's a team building exercise, whatever it might be. And, if you only hit 27 out of 30 days, maybe you have to buy the dinner or whatever it might be. And so I would have fun with it, but just make sure that everybody wants to take ownership of it. If anything's ever forced on somebody and they haven't bought in, they're not going to be consistent. And you're doing this because you want consistency in the disciplines. So I think you have to make sure that the communication's there, the structure's right, so that everybody executes for the right reasons.
Awesome. Thank you.
I do, to be respectful for everybody's time, Brett, I want to finish and then turn this over to you, because I just want to share something that is really, really, really powerful, and kind of button this up and then turn it over to you. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
So for those of you that do follow on Instagram, I can't take credit for this. I'm going to give the credit where credit is due. Tyler Kirk, who is our creative director, he also runs a company that we have called Legacy Media. Tyler, on Sundays, the little swipe posts that there's images and a caption. He always does those on Sundays. And he captures a consistent theme of something I've been speaking about. And oftentimes he writes the whole caption himself. And he wrote something at the turn of the year. And this is his doing. I want to give him the credit because he deserves it. But he talks about how the calendar doesn't care. And I think each and every single one of you have to remember to stay connected to your burn. You can't be influenced, as Sasha talked, by what somebody else wants you to believe so that you don't take action. You have to take action based upon what you believe. You have to believe that you all can each raise the bar. You have to believe that you can stack days of doing the things that'll cause you to be great, those prize fighter days. And I will send a follow-up video so that everybody can watch what a prize fighter day is and build your own prize fighter day, the personal, the professional, the of service behaviors. But here's what he says about the calendar doesn't care. And I believe in all of you. If you guys are running with, hanging with, being a partner in whatever part of the industry you're in with Brett Baird, then I know you are great people. I believe in you, and everything you need is already in you. But I think this is really powerful what Tyler shares. He says, as we are about to turn the page on another year, most people are setting themselves up with big goals. New year, a new you mentality. Now, there's nothing wrong with marking the new year with goals of change, but I want to remind you of something. Although it's important to have the end goal in mind, that goal you set doesn't care what day on the calendar it is or what your intentions are. It only cares about your consistent action. The only way this year is going to be different for you is if you set out to commit to the daily disciplines that are going to produce the result that you're looking for. Stop blaming everything and everyone else. I truly believe that 2023 can be your best year yet. But remember, discipline is bigger than a calendar. Thank you to each and every single one of you. I look forward to our continued quarterly calls together. I want to help all of you fight through this time. Let's raise the bar together. We're in this fight together. Brett, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be part of this group. I'll turn it over to you.
No, thanks so much, guys. This isn't a call for, agents I do business with. This is a call about people I care deeply about. It's just that damn simple. Each and every one of you, we appreciate you guys. The business is great, but the friendships are better. I lean on you guys a lot. So I certainly appreciate each and every one of you. So let's hang out. We'll see you guys soon. And Ben, next quarterly, huh? We'll start sending out information for that now. And then anything Ben also mentioned, we'll send out here right afterwards. Thanks so much, guys.